The New York Islanders have finally found out how long Anthony Duclair is expected to be out of the lineup, and Patrick Roy is already making line changes. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR-VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. So on Thursday, the Islanders finally made it official. Anthony Duclair expected to miss between 4 and 6 weeks with a lower body injury. Obviously, nobody is specifically saying what that injury is. I don't anticipate that's going to change. Rumors are, okay, it's something groin related, but no confirmation on that. And 4 to 6 weeks, quite honestly, is less time than I was thinking we were going to hear, based on Lou Lamoriello saying it's more long-term than short-term. I thought we were talking 2, 3, maybe more months rather than 4 to 6 weeks. So that's, in my mind at least, for the most part, good news. Keep in mind, you don't know. Injuries, especially soft tissue injuries, can be tricky. The estimate could be 4 to 6 weeks. He could be back in 3. He could be back in 10. We don't know. But as of right now, 4 to 6 weeks is the expected absence. And now the Islanders have a little bit of a burden to try to figure out exactly what to do with regard to this lineup, because they need to be a little bit more productive offensively than they have been. Being shut out 3 times in 6 games is not an equation for victory for any hockey team, and they've got to be better. So what did Patrick Roy do on Thursday? He made changes to his line, and Oliver Wahlstrom elevated from the 4th line to the 3rd. So it's now J.G. Pageau, Anders Lee, Oliver Wahlstrom, center, left wing, right wing. So that is one combination. And now the 4th line is going to be Kyle McLean, Casey Cizikas, and Liam Foudy. So the big thing is you get a little more scoring ability on the 3rd line and a little more speed on the 4th line. And, that is, in my mind, an interesting combination. And Roy said after practice, with regard to his 4th line, they're energy guys. They're guys that are good when working down low. So they're doing a very great job trying to bring pucks to the net. And I have no problem playing them against, let's say, the top line of the other team. As for Oliver Wahlstrom, Pajot and Wahlstrom have been teamed up before in past seasons, and J.G. Pajot kind of excited to see Wally on his line. Pajot telling reporters he has a great shot, good vision, and he's very good with the puck in the offensive zone. He's put a lot of emphasis on his defensive game and has some grit to his game. I'm excited to play with him. And Patrick Waugh trying to build up Wahlstrom, talking about his defensive play being better. I just want him to continue to play the way he's been playing. I don't think it's a different role because he's playing with Pajot and Anders. I want him to continue to work well in his zone. If there's a chance to maybe score goals if they're there, but if they're not there, just play his game and be himself. That's all I want. My concern, I like the change. I like making the fourth line speedier. It does sort of imply that you're going away from some of the more physical aspects of fourth line play. The concern I have with this combination is the third line. You got two guys in Lee and Wahlstrom on this line who are not fast or great skaters. And there may be a lot of pressure on J.G. Pajot to, be that guy who can keep up with some of the opposition's faster skaters and get that job done. So that is, in my mind, a little bit of a concern that the third line may be slow. But you also have Pajot teamed up with Lee and Wahlstrom, two guys who at least in theory can score 20 goals. They haven't, done it consistently. Lee barely made 20 goals last year after a dreadful first half of the season and struggled until late in the season when he started to pick things up. Wahlstrom, again, hasn't reached the 20-goal plateau, although everybody says his shot is his best feature. The third line might be able to pick up its offensive productivity with this change if their lack of speed does not hamper them defensively and offensively. So that's going to be a key. And now your fourth line is faster. McLean, Cizikas, and Foudy gives you some speed on that fourth line, and you get the feeling they are going to be a very, very different style of fourth line than what we saw in the last decade with Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck, or Ross Johnston, or whoever else was going to be in there. Does this team still have questionable physicality? I would have to say it's still an issue that we haven't settled yet. I'm not going to sit here and say nobody on this team will hit. Anders Lee has been more physical. Scott Mayfield can be more physical. Pelech and Polak should be more physical, although they have not been as physical. The guy who's been the most physical, Maxim Siplikov. I mean, Siplikov has been great. The thing I want to see more of, though, that I'm kind of disappointed in, who is last on the Islanders right now in hits with 1 in 5 games? Oliver Wahlstrom. And I'm not saying he should be, leading the team in hits, but I do want to see him be more physical than he has been so far. 1 hit in 5 games, even though he's only playing 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes at most a game. Got to be better than that. So hopefully these line changes have a positive impact on the New York Islanders. We'll see whether or not they do, but I think it can. And again, you hope that the third line and the fourth line with these changes are a little more productive. I have no illusion that either one of these bottom 6 lines is going to suddenly turn into this monster scoring line. No illusion. This team does not have great scoring depth, and when you lose a first-line winger who was brought in to try to increase the scoring ability of your team, it's going to hurt, and the team was already not a great offensive team, even with Anthony Duclair. But they can't be as bad as they've been so far this year, and that's what I hope Patrick Roy can get. Meanwhile, we're still waiting to see whether or not they end up placing Duclair on LTIR. No official decision has been made on that. If they do, can they recall Pierre Engvall? Possibly. Again, waiting to see what Lou Lamoriello does, whether he recalls Engvall if he puts him on LTIR, whether he goes with Karlstrom, or if he wants to get a little younger and go with a Dufour or a Maggio. We don't know. But those are the choices, and we'll talk about that more when and if something actually happens. We have got more to get to on today's show. The Athletic coming up with its rankings of front offices around the league. Where do you think the Islanders stood? And these are voted on by members of other NHL front offices. We'll go over all of that, plus 2 games this weekend to preview. Tonight in New Jersey at the Rock against the Devils. Saturday at home against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. We'll preview both of those games. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a forward better known for his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he did spend most of one season with the Islanders in the mid-90s, and he scored 24 goals in 58 games. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all this and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as little as 15 minutes. Think Justin Jefferson will get more than 83.5 yards next week? Christian McCaffrey run for more than 75.5 yards? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. So, again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So the Athletic, they're always running some interesting surveys, whether it's done through different writers or whether it's done, through different members of the front office. Well, they asked in this case to have 40 members who are considered high-ranking league executives, GMs, assistant GMs, senior advisors, scouting directors. They asked 40 of them who they felt were the best run front offices, and they were going to rank their top 10, okay? First place got 10 points, second place 7, third place 5, fifth place down to 1. So I guess they were actually asked to rank their top 5, excuse me. And surprise, surprise, right now the Dallas Stars end up number 1, Tampa Bay Lightning number 2, the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers 3, Vegas Golden Knights 4, the Boston Bruins 5. What do we know about all 5 of those teams? They are perennial playoff teams, and they have been Stanley Cup contenders or close to it for the better part of the last 5+ plus years. And 23 of the 32 teams in the NHL did not received at least one top 5 vote. 9 teams did not. And the New York Islanders were among the 9 teams that did not get any votes. The other teams, the Buffalo Sabres, the Calgary Flames, the Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets, the LA Kings, the Ottawa Senators, the San Jose Sharks, and the Seattle Kraken. And yet, out of all those teams that didn't receive votes, I think most of them, if not all of them, would have to be considered teams that have a better outlook 3 years down the road than the New York Islanders do. The Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets, the Senators, the Sharks, these are teams that have been accumulating draft picks and have a lot of young talent coming up through their ranks. Still may take a couple of years for them to turn the corner and start to make the playoffs. But the problem the Islanders have right now is they're still in the bottom third as far as prospect pools are concerned. That was dead last up until now. This year, finally drafting Cole Yzerman and a few other players after holding on to your first-round pick and 2 second-rounders this year. That helped the Islanders' ranking. But as far as NHL-ready prospects, the Islanders do not rank particularly high. And they have an older team, not a lot of NHL-ready prospects. The best prospects the Islanders have, guys like Alex Jeffries, Cole Yzerman, guys like that are still 2 years, 3 years away at best, and we're still not sure where they stand. Overall, having the Islanders get no votes in a top 5 from 40 front office executives, it's telling. And I think I'll tie it back in with some of the reports about attendance. And we talked about, Tuesday's game being the lowest attended game at UBS Arena since it opened. Let's face it, the newness of the arena is wearing off. It's not a novelty anymore. The prices for tickets and food and parking are high. They're very high. The product on the ice is not the most they're not the most exciting team to watch so far this season. The roster, as I said, kind of older. Overall, this team looks to be in the muddy middle again. And, the arrow, unless some changes are made, and again, every day, as we talked about this over the offseason, there could be some big changes this offseason. Players coming off the books, players leaving, not having a no-trade clause anymore, going from a full no-trade clause to a modified no-trade clause. Some potential buyouts that are out there now, that some of these players with bad contracts have less time left before they're free agents, so they can be traded. There's a lot of possibilities, and the question still remains, is Lou Lamoriello going to keep doubling down to stay in the muddy middle, or is he going to take either a step back to take 2 steps forward, or is he going to really gamble and just, try to really rebuild this team and get them to be a cup contender? I don't think he can do it with the current lineup without bringing in a bona fide sniper or 2. At least another 30-goal guy is needed for this team. And maybe some more physicality as well. If you want to go from a fringe playoff team, where the Islanders are now, to a real cup contender, you've got to make changes. And thus far, over the last 2-3 years, Lou Lamoriello has just been either not willing or not able to make those changes. So 40 top front office executives, no votes for the New York Islanders, one of 9 teams not to receive votes, and I can't say that I'm shocked. All right, we have got more to get to on today's show. 2 games this weekend, tonight and Saturday night, tomorrow night. We will preview them both. We'll also have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Islander fans, you got a game tonight against the Devils, a game Saturday at home against the Panthers. Check out the latest odds. Can the Islanders pull off an upset against the defending Stanley Cup champions? Check out the odds at FanDuel. Again, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 2 games this weekend, neither one easy. Let's take a look at where we're at. Friday, it's the Islanders and the New Jersey Devils. And I'll tell you, the Devils off to a big start. Now they're ahead of everybody because they started the season early in Prague, and they've played 10 games as of right now, while the Islanders, as you know, have played 6. So the Islanders will have a little advantage because the Devils play Thursday night against the Detroit Red Wings. Jacob Markstrom is in goal for the Devils in this game, which means that we are not likely to see him against the Islanders. We are more likely to see Jake Allen. Allen has played 3 games so far. He's 2-1 with a 3.01 goals against average and an .880 save percentage. And again, this gives the Islanders a chance against a backup goalie. The only thing they cannot afford to do is make another backup goalie look like the next Terry Sawchuk. So, look, this is a dangerous Devils team. Nico Hischier, 5 goals already. Paul Cotter, 5 goals. Timo Meier and Stefan Noesen with 9 points each. We know the difference Jacob Markstrom has made in goal. The Devils, already have 5 wins and 1 overtime loss, not including the Thursday night game against Detroit. It is a team with speed, a team with skill. If anything, they have a little bit of a question on the blue line, due in part to injuries, but we'll see. If the Islanders can slow this team down. Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, and Dawson Mercer are a dangerous top line. Jack Hughes, extremely dangerous on the second line. Andre Palat and Jesper Bratt, an underrated second line. Eric Huala, Paul Cotter, and Stefan Noesen on the third line, and then Curtis Lazar, Tomas Tatar, and Nathan Bastian are the fourth line. This team is good. They are deep. They are fast. Brendan Dillon and Dougie Hamilton are the top defensive pair. Having Hamilton back is huge. Jonas Siegenthaler and Jonathan Kovacevic, they are the second pairing. And then Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce are the third pair. Again, the goalies, Markstrom and Allen. The special teams have been really good for the Devils, 10th on the power play, 9th on the penalty kill in the league. Islanders cannot allow special teams to be a big deficit for them on Friday night. Then Saturday, it's the Florida Panthers up against the New York Islanders, and that is at UBS Arena. Florida playing again Thursday night against the New York Rangers, so they're already in town. And again, the Panthers, defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. Their struggles so far this year have been on the defensive side of things. They are 29th in the league in goals against, and that's where they need to firm things up. The Islanders, can they take advantage of a team that's struggling defensively? We'll find out, but boy, they have it tough because the Florida Panthers certainly have enough talent and ability to put pucks in the net. Now, Sergei Bobrovsky is the goalie against the Rangers. Whether we see Bob again on Saturday, because they will have a day off in between, or whether we see Spencer Knight, that remains to be seen. But look, Sam Reinhart, 12 points through the first 8 games. Sam Bennett, 8 points in 8 games. Anton Lundell, 8 points through 8 games. This is a dangerous team. You saw them last year in the Cup Finals. Lundell, Eetu Luosterainen, and Sam Reinhart are the top line. Sam Bennett, Carter Verhaeghe, and Matthew Tkachuk, the second line. Jesper Boqvist, Evan Rodriguez, and Mackie Samoskevich on the third line. Patrick Giles, A.J. Greer, and Uvis Balinksis. That's the fourth line. Gustav Forsling and Aaron Ekblad, a very skilled top pair. Dmitry Kulikov and Mikko Mikkola are the second pair, and then Nate Schmidt and Adam Boqvist, the third pair. Injuries, Thomas Nosek, Alexander Barkov, and Yona Gadjevich are all out. Gadjevich day-to-day. Bobrovsky and Knight, as I mentioned, are the goalies. The power play is struggling right now for Florida. They're 18th in the league. The penalty kill, though, 7th going into that game against the Rangers. I'll tell you, Florida is skilled, but they're also can be big and physical, and the Islanders are going to have to answer the bell to the speed of the Devils and the skill of the Devils, and then the size and the skill of the Panthers. You know that the Islanders are going to play different goalies in each game. I don't know who is going to get the start Friday and who is going to get the start on Saturday. That remains to be seen. But as of right now, we're expecting Ilya Sorokin to play Friday and then Varley to play Saturday. But again, we shall see. Not confirmed as of yet. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And today, Friday, is the 58th birthday of former Islanders winger Wendell Clark, the Kelvington, Saskatchewan native, first overall pick in the 1985 NHL entry draft by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Scored 34 goals in his first NHL season in 85-86. Stayed with the Leafs through the 93-94 season, played 1 year for the Quebec Nordique, and then joined the Islanders for 95-96, played 58 games for the Isles, 24 goals, 43 points, got dealt back to Toronto, then played for Tampa Bay, Detroit, Chicago, and a brief stint with Toronto to close out his career. For Wendell Clark, he basically scored 330 goals and 564 points in 793 games, had 37 goals, 69 points in 95 playoff games. Clark's best game as an Islander, well, one of them November 30th, 1995. Islanders visiting the Ottawa Senators up in Ottawa, and with the score 3-0 Islanders in the second period. Wendell Clark, our Islanders' birthday of the day, scores an unassisted goal just 2 minutes and 24 seconds into the second stanza. Islanders up 4-0. The goalies in this one, Jamie McLennan for the Islanders, Don Beaupre for the Senators. But with the Islanders up 4-0. The Senators score 3 third-period goals before Wendell Clark scores another unassisted empty net goal with 1:09 left. Islanders win this one by a score of 5-3. Wendell Clark, 2 goals in this game. He was a +1. He had 4 shots on goal, and one of his 2 goals proved to be the game winner. Wendell Clark is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everybody who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we're back on Monday. We'll break down both of this weekend's games, both against the Devils and the Panthers. And we will start to look ahead to the Anaheim Ducks game, and we'll see how this team is responding so far without Anthony Duclair, what the latest line combinations are like, and what this team is doing well and what they need to do better. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.